Usually we have a guy to do this. This is Jevin and Paul. They're going to be helping me out.
A perfect fit for a girl in need of a tourniquet. But can you save me? Come on and save me. If you could save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone. 'Cause I can tell you know what it's like. A long farewell of the hunger strike. But can you save me? Why don't you save me? If you could save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone. You struck me down a gradient, like Peter Pan or Superman. You will come to save me. Why don't you save me? If you could save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone, except the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone. But the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone. Come on and save me. Why don't you save me? If you could save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone, except the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone, except the freaks who could never love anyone. Thank you.
Poetry that isn't set to music, and how poetry is a part of or isn't a part of your making songs, your whole process?
I don't think it's really, it's not like I read a lot of poetry. I mean, I think that my thing is I have a real love of language, and sort of whatever I come across where the person clearly has a love of words. I mean, I think like Billy was, when he was talking about that, you sort of come for the, for the form, for the love of language, for the love of the form. That's kind of my thing. And in a lot of ways, I don't feel like lyrics are poetry. I mean, I feel like lyrics, I think that it's like cheating, because you have music, and like as soon as you hear the music, it makes you feel something. So you're already, like you don't have to rely on language as much. And like my personal feeling is that people get away with murder with lyrics, and that you can have a song that's still a pretty good song where clearly the person's not really thinking so much about what they're saying, and that does drive me crazy, because I love words. I love the form. I love having the form be, I love having rhymes that are exact, and internal rhymes, and alliteration, like all the sort of classic things that poetry has to offer. I feel like the more you have of that, the better the experience is as a listener, because those things kind of click in your brain. They sort of, it's like, it's a fun thing for your brain to hear that kind of, like exact rhymes or a words within a sentence that kind of go together in an interesting way. So, so it's not poetry specifically, but whoever likes to move words around, I'm a fan of.
And let's hear from some other, I'm sure that many of you have questions as well. Questions for Aimee Mann. I have more,
Nope.
but I want you all to ask questions. Right there. Poet shirt. Yes. Oh, you all have shirts that say poet.
Hello. My question was, how do you, because for me, I don't think I could ever write a song. So do you think you could ever write poetry in silence, like without the music, if you could?
I think I could. I think it could, but it would probably be harder. I mean, it would definitely be harder. One of the things, I've always sort of felt like I'm not a very articulate person, and writing songs it sort of became for me a way to talk about things that I could not talk about in any other way. And I think that really, like having music kind of jumpstart that. It just, like if you hear. If you feel something, or I do anyway, and then I go, well, what is that I'm feeling? And to me, it feels like the music has a story in it, and I just have to kind of figure out what that is. And maybe it's a little like having a dream and interpreting your dream, or looking at a piece of art and or it's like a Rorschach test, really. You look at the ink blot and you go like, it looks like a butterfly with like a guy with a, So maybe that's just what it is, and I don't know. I think that's okay. But that's sort of how I approach it, because that saves me the burden of going, what am I thinking and how do I feel? And I go, well, what does the music say? But it does feel like cheating, I have to say.
One last question.
Here's some.
You could stand.
What led you to cross over from like the hardcore punk scene into a more acoustic sound?
I think that when I was younger, I wasn't an accomplished musician, so the punk scene was attractive because it was really like anything goes, and you could do anything, and just like My manager is here, and we were in bands in Boston together, and he was in a band, and they had a song, the lyrics of which were a recipe for shrimp flambé. And it was kind of like, there was something that was very fun, and it was very playful about that, having, you could do whatever you wanted to. But then I started to realize like that within that sort of, super arty underground punk scene, there were things that you were not supposed to write about. Like you weren't supposed to write about any kind of relationship stuff or love songs. That was out of the question. And then I started to feel like, well, this is kind of restrictive. And so I did sort of an about face, and and I don't think like I'm essentially very sort of angry, punky type of person in the first place. But it was a fun thing to try out for a while.
Okay, well, thank you, Aimee Mann.
Thank you so much.
And so we are at an end of this part of the day. I want to thank everyone for attending, and of course to thank the President and the First Lady for having us here for this occasion. I want to give one last round of applause to all of the poets. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just want to send you off into the day with a few words from the great poet from the South Side of Chicago, the Bard of the South Side, the late, great Gwendolyn Brooks. I hope you all know her poetry. And I'm reading out her words, of course, because the South Side of Chicago gave us our spectacular First Lady. And so I just want to leave you with Gwendolyn Brooks's words. Conduct your blooming in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. So off you go. Happy poetry.